The world may seem like it's falling apart, confusion, chaos, darkness everywhere, but through it all, something holy is happening. It's subtle, powerful, and deeply personal. Heaven's spotlight is moving across the earth, searching not for celebrities or social media stars, but for warriors of the spirit. And guess what? That spotlight might just be on you. Have you ever felt like your life was preparing you for something much bigger than yourself? Like your heartbreaks, your setbacks, and even your silent tears were all part of a divine training ground. It's not random. It's not just the universe aligning energies. No, this is something far greater. This is God, the creator of heaven and earth, hand-selecting you, refining you, and setting you apart for a time such as this. Consider Elijah, not a king, not a priest, not a man of prestige, but a prophet with dust on his sandals and pain in his chest. Elijah once sat under a tree, exhausted and ready to give up, asking God to end it all. But instead of punishment or pity, God responded with a whisper, not in a fire, not in an earthquake, not even in a storm, but in a still, small voice. That moment wasn't just healing, it was launching. God commissioned Elijah to anoint kings, empower the next generation, and confront evil with boldness. And if God did that for Elijah in his lowest hour, what do you think he's doing in your life right now? The fact that you're watching this video isn't random. This isn't just YouTube's algorithm. It's divine orchestration. You are not here by accident. You're here because God wants you to hear this. You are chosen to lead, not in the comfort of normalcy, but in the urgency of the end times. You've always known you were different. That rejection, it wasn't failure, it was redirection. That spiritual warfare, it's not punishment, it's preparation. You're not being overlooked. You're being hidden until the right time. Matthew 22:14 says, "Many are called, but few are chosen." That's not just poetic, it's prophetic. And if your heart is pounding right now, it's because your spirit recognizes the truth. You've been forged in fire for a reason, and soon you'll see why the battles were so intense. Because the calling is so great, so stay with me. This is the moment you realize you were never meant to blend in. You were born to stand out. Let's begin. Sign 1, you were forged in fire, not favor. In a world that worships illusion over authenticity, the chosen ones stand as walking contradictions to the culture. While the masses measure worth by how many likes they get or how perfect their highlight reel appears, your life has been shaped in the shadows, messy, painful, and brutally real. And yet, it's precisely because your story doesn't mirror the world's definition of success that you're set apart. You were never meant to blend in. Your path has been anything but ordinary because your purpose was never meant to be common. While others were out manifesting their dreams with vision boards and catchy affirmations, you were clinging to hope in the middle of storms. You were surviving when others were celebrating. You didn't have the luxury of shortcuts or smooth sailing. Every step of your journey has come with a cost, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Your story doesn't sound like a motivational speaker's highlight reel. It sounds more like a battlefield report. It's not filled with declarations of "I always knew I'd make it," but admissions like, "There were nights I didn't think I'd wake up, and yet here you are, still standing." To understand who you are now, you've got to remember what you've survived. Not the dressed-up version of your life, but the raw footage, the kind that doesn't make it into social media posts. The nights you cried silently because you had no one to talk to. The moments when survival wasn't poetic, just necessary. Maybe it was a childhood where your voice was ignored, where love was conditional. Or maybe it was betrayal so deep that it changed the way you trust forever. Maybe it was scraping by with nothing, sacrificing meals just to keep the lights on. These moments didn't define you, they refined you. People have always misunderstood you. Even those closest to you couldn't quite get you. You were labeled as too sensitive, too intense, too deep. But those were never flaws. They were signs. Proof that you weren't just built differently. You were wired differently for a reason. You weren't made for shallow waters. You were designed for depth. And depth requires isolation. There's a big difference between exclusion and seclusion. God didn't push you away. He pulled you aside. Like a soldier in training, you were pulled from the crowd so you could be prepared without distractions. God didn't hide you because you weren't enough. He hid you because what you carried was too valuable to be exposed prematurely. Some gifts need time to mature. Some anointings are too heavy to be carried without preparation. You weren't benched, You were being built. Think about Hell Week, the infamous military training phase that separates the committed from the casual. Recruits are pushed past their breaking point to reveal who has the grit, resilience, and mental toughness to lead under pressure. Sleep-deprived, wet, cold, exhausted, it's not glamorous, but it's necessary. Sound familiar? That's exactly what your life has been. God wasn't punishing you with pressure. He was perfecting you through it. You've already endured the kind of pain that would have shattered most people. You've walked through emotional landmines, survived spiritual droughts, and weathered storms that were meant to drown you. But instead of sinking, you learned to swim. You learned to discern. You learned to stand when your knees were trembling. That wasn't just survival, that was training. And what happened while you were in the shadows? People misread your silence. They thought your stillness was a sign of surrender, but you weren't inactive. You were incubating. You weren't being ignored. You were being instructed. Every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every closed door was part of your divine curriculum. God was rewriting your mindset, pruning your relationships, molding your character. The wilderness wasn't a detour. It was the destination that forged your destiny. Biblical stories mirror this pattern. Joseph was thrown into a pit and falsely imprisoned before reaching the palace. David was tending sheep in obscurity long before he faced Goliath. Even Jesus, before he began his public ministry, spent 40 days in the wilderness being tested. The pattern is clear. Isolation comes before elevation. The wilderness is where the called become chosen. And psychologically, let's not ignore the weight of what you've endured. Studies show that prolonged isolation can lead to mental health deterioration, depression, anxiety, even psychosis. But you flipped the script. You didn't just survive isolation, you used it. You read, you healed, you prayed, you journaled, you rebuilt your inner world when your outer world offered no sanctuary. That's not just resilience, that's spiritual genius. Now here's where it gets interesting. The very people who once dismissed you are watching you with wide eyes and tight lips. They see your glow up and wonder how it happened. What they didn't realize is that while they were celebrating early wins, you were laying foundations in secret. While they laughed, you labored, and now your rise is undeniable, but you never clapped back. You never had to, because your growth became your response. Your presence became your proof. You knew the fake love from day one. You saw the betrayal before it struck. You sensed the envy behind every backhanded compliment, but you stayed quiet. Not because you were weak, but because you were wise. Wisdom doesn't waste energy exposing the petty, it stays focused on the promise. That's what chosen ones do. You don't get dragged down by bitterness, you get elevated by discipline. And spiritually speaking, sometimes God lets your enemies stick around, not to torment you, but to witness your transformation. Your life becomes a living parable, your success, your healing, your peace. It preaches louder than any sermon. They may not admit it, but they're learning through your elevation what faith, patience, and obedience really look like. You never needed their applause. You needed the pressure. You didn't need validation. You needed the valley, because it was in the valley that your vision was born. So don't regret your journey. Don't resent the process. Everything that hurt you was teaching you. Everything that left you was making space for better. Everything that delayed you was protecting you. You weren't abandoned. You were anointed. And now you don't just walk in confidence, you carry authority. The kind that doesn't need loud words or flashy titles. The kind that commands respect through presence alone. You've earned your scars, you've earned your strength, you've earned your seat at the table, not through entitlement, but through endurance. And now your presence shifts atmospheres, your words carry weight, your spirit carries wisdom. You're not just surviving anymore. You're leading, you're healing. You're activating others through your testimony, and maybe the most powerful truth of all, you've learned how to command the very fire that once tried to consume you. You don't just endure the flames now, you've become the flame. So chosen one, remember, your journey was never about fitting in, it was about standing out. It was about being forged into someone who could handle the weight of purpose. Your calling demanded more, so you endured more. And now, as you walk into this new season, don't minimize what you've survived. Don't hide your scars. They're not signs of weakness. They're proof of your power. You were born for this. And your story? It's not just a comeback. It's a calling. Sign 2. You see through the masks. Let's talk about spiritual X-ray vision. Why chosen ones? See what others miss. Ever walked into a room and instantly felt like something was off? No one said anything wrong, no obvious body language gave it away, but still deep down you knew the energy wasn't right. Maybe someone smiled wide and complimented you, but something about it felt off. I mean, they said all the right things. You're amazing. So proud of you. You're glowing. Yet it felt like you were being sprayed with glitter-covered shade. That, my friend, is not paranoia. That is discernment, a spiritual gift that the world can't always explain, but the chosen ones know all too well. You don't just look, you see. Discernment is like spiritual X-ray vision. While others rely on facial expressions, tone of voice, and polite gestures to judge someone's intentions, you've got a radar that operates on a different frequency, and you don't just observe behavior, you detect spirit, you read what isn't being said. You feel behind the curtain. Why? Because chosen ones aren't guided by sight, they're guided by spirit. The Bible even says in 1 Samuel 16:7, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And guess what? When you're walking with God, He gives you glimpses of those hearts. You become spiritually tuned in. You can walk into a gathering, and within seconds, you know who's real and who's performing. You pick up on energy shifts before anyone else even notices there was a shift at all. It's not something you were taught. It's something you were born with, a divine download, a prophetic edge gifted to those chosen for spiritual leadership in these final times. Why you're always tired around certain people. This heightened discernment is also why some environments absolutely exhaust you. You don't do well with small talk because your spirit isn't interested in surface-level nonsense. It longs for truth, depth, authenticity. Being around people who are fake, manipulative, jealous, or spiritually toxic isn't just annoying, it's draining. You're not antisocial, you're anti-fake. Your spirit does the talking long before your mouth opens. And your body responds to energies that your logical mind hasn't even processed yet. That tension in your shoulders, that sudden headache when a certain person walks in, that need to leave a room without knowing why, that's your gift sounding the alarm. Your presence is a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable. Here's where things get real. Your very presence exposes people. You don't even have to say anything. You just being you, authentic, spirit-led, and aligned, makes people squirm. Why? Because when you carry light, it reveals darkness. You don't need to call people out. Your energy does it for you. You're like a walking mirror. And guess what? Most people aren't ready to face themselves. This is why they say you're too intense, or too much, or hard to be around. But what they really mean is, you see me too clearly, and that terrifies me. People wear masks because it helps them survive in a world that rewards illusion. But you see through the mask. And once someone knows that you know, the power dynamic shifts. They can't manipulate you. They can't impress you with flash and fluff. And that makes you dangerous to their ego. Demons get nervous when you enter a room. Let's get a little deeper. When you walk into a room, spiritual warfare begins. You ever notice how some people start acting weird around you? Stammering, avoiding eye contact, suddenly changing the topic. That's not just awkward social behavior. That's their spirit reacting to yours. You didn't attack them. They just weren't ready to be seen. Demons don't like being recognized. This is especially true in the final times. God is raising up leaders who aren't just articulate or charismatic. They're spiritually awake. And that makes them lethal in a world full of deception, fake smiles, secret agendas, quiet envy. But you cut through the fog like a sword. You're not overthinking. You're over-receiving. Some people will tell you to stop overthinking, to relax, to let things slide. But what they don't understand is that you're not overthinking. You're over-receiving. You're constantly picking up signals. You notice the energy in someone's tone, the tension behind their smile, the spiritual weight in a room. You're a spiritual receptor. And while others are focused on what's obvious, you're busy decoding what's hidden. You see people's fears, their insecurities, even their secret intentions without them ever saying a word, and that's heavy. This gift isn't just for protection, it's for purpose. Now let's be clear, your discernment isn't just for calling out the fake and avoiding bad vibes. That's part of it, yes, but it's also meant to guide you in your assignment. God gives this gift to those He trusts to carry out truth in a time of deception. You're not just intuitive for fun. You're intuitive because your path requires it. You're meant to lead, to uncover, to protect, and to heal. You're not meant to blend in, you're meant to stand out, to be set apart. And don't be surprised when people try to silence you, dim your light, or label you as judgmental or overly spiritual. They're reacting to a threat, not you, but the truth you carry. Don't dim your discernment, sharpen it. In these final times, what saves isn't just knowledge or talent, it's truth. And chosen ones are armed with it. Your discernment is your compass, your spiritual radar, your armor. Your gift is not paranoia, it's not imagination, it's revelation. And here's the good news, the more you trust it, the stronger it gets. So no, don't second guess yourself. Don't shrink in rooms that weren't built for your expansion. Don't doubt the feeling in your gut when everything looks normal. But something's screaming, run. Sharpen your discernment, protect your peace, and know this, in a world full of lies, your truth is a weapon. And every time you walk boldly in it, you advance light, disrupt darkness, and fulfill the assignment God has placed on your life. So the next time someone says you're too intense or reading too much into things, smile kindly and think to yourself, no, I'm just seeing what you're trying to hide. Because chosen one, you're not just a spectator in this spiritual war. You're the weapon. And your spiritual X-ray vision, that's heaven's way of saying, I trust you with the truth. Sign 3. You've been attacked more than blessed, yet still standing. Let's laugh together real quick. Remember that month? Oh yeah, you know the one. The everything that could go wrong did go wrong kind of month. Your bank account gave up faster than your alarm clock on Monday mornings. Friends ghosted like you had a contagious dream. Your body started acting like it was tired of being a body, and sleep, you couldn't even find it with a GPS and divine directions. You lit that lavender candle, played the ocean sounds, even counted sheep backwards while drinking chamomile tea. And still, all you heard was spiritual static. And what did you do? You tried to just think positive, manifested, meditated, quoted your favorite motivational speaker. You even gave yourself a pep talk, like you were coaching your own TED Talk. But instead of inner peace, you got spiritual warfare in 4K, surround sound, no remote control, no pause button. And it hit you. This wasn't just a bad week or Mercury being shady and retrograde. This was targeted because, and let's be real, the enemy doesn't waste bullets on empty vessels. Nah, he saves the heavy artillery for the ones carrying purpose, power, and prophetic potential. The devil's not chasing the ones going nowhere. He's after the ones whose destiny makes hell nervous. And guess who's got divine cargo glowing like a spiritual UPS truck? You. That's why you survived what should have shattered you. That's why the car crash didn't take you out. That's why the heartbreak didn't break you. Depression tried to pin you down, but somehow you still found the strength to breathe, to get up, to keep moving. You were betrayed, but you didn't become bitter. You were lied on, mocked, misunderstood, and mishandled. But you didn't get petty. You didn't let it poison your purpose. And let me tell you something, only the truly anointed can do that. You're still here, not barely holding on here, not cute and comfy here, but standing bold like David before Goliath here. Battle-tested, soul-awake, eyes open kind of here. See, the enemy hoped those attacks would wear you down. He thought the storms would silence you, that pain would paralyze you, that the loneliness would cause you to compromise. But surprise, surprise, every attack only unlocked a new level in you. He thought he was taking you out, but he was just pushing you deeper into your calling. Here's the revelation. The evidence of your anointing isn't always the blessings. It's the battles. Yes, you heard that right. It's not always the applause, the open doors, the shiny miracles, or the favor ain't fair moments. It's the nights you cried and prayed at the same time, the mornings you got up anyway, the days you smiled through silent warfare, the times you served while suffering. That's what makes you chosen. The fire didn't consume you. It refined you. God has been training you in warfare, not to make you suffer, but to prepare you for leadership in times like these. You weren't just being tested. You were being trained. You're not just a survivor. You're a soldier. You were never called to preach pretty words in safe spaces. You were built to wage holy war, to pray like a warrior, to love without losing your truth, to stand firm even when the ground under you shakes. Every storm you faced, it was your spiritual gym, the betrayal, your training in loyalty, the silence, your lesson in listening to God's whispers, the heartbreak, a crash course in compassion, the attacks, proof of your rank in the Spirit. Your scars are not shameful, they're sacred stripes. And in heaven, those stripes mean you passed the test. You held the line. You kept the faith. You stayed the course, even when everything in you screamed to give up. You showed up in rooms where you were the only one who truly believed. You kept planting seeds even when you hadn't seen the harvest yet. And guess what? The harvest is coming. Oh, it's been slow, sure, but it's been growing in the unseen, behind the veil, under the surface. Your name is being mentioned in rooms you haven't entered yet. Your obedience in the wilderness has activated overflow in the promised land, because God doesn't waste pain. He recycles it into purpose. The very people who mocked you, they'll need your prayers. The ones who doubted your journey, they'll be inspired by your strength. But here's the key: don't get bitter, get better. Let God handle the revenge. He's way more creative with justice than you are. The truth is, God even uses your enemies as part of the lesson plan. That's right. They think they're breaking you, but God's using them to make you. Because when you're chosen, even betrayal becomes a blessing in disguise. Even the pit becomes the path to the palace. So don't just survive your battles. Study them, write down the patterns, learn your triggers, identify what activated the warfare. Because those attacks weren't random, they were revealing. They revealed your strength, your blind spots, your resilience, your armor, and most of all, they revealed your identity. You're not just someone trying to make it. You are a chosen one, a divine disruptor, a carrier of light in a world obsessed with darkness. You're the kind of person hell regrets messing with, because every time you were knocked down, you rose wiser, louder, stronger. Don't hide your scars, beloved. Don't clean them up for the comfort of others. Show them, celebrate them. They're your badge of honor. They're proof you didn't quit, even when quitting was the easy option. If no one told you lately, let me remind you, you're still here because there's something incredible still ahead. You're not behind, you're not late, you're on assignment. And the warfare you've faced is just confirmation of your worth in the spirit. God didn't bring you this far just to leave you exhausted and confused. He brought you this far to show you what's in you, to reveal your divine DNA, to make sure when the final trumpet sounds, you'll be one of the ones who didn't fold, didn't run, didn't conform. So yes, laugh about that wild month now, because what tried to break you only made you bolder. And next time the enemy launches an attack, just smile and say, oh, I've been trained for this, because chosen ones don't retreat, they rise. Sign 4, you don't fit in because you were born to stand out. You don't fit in. And that's exactly the point. A wake-up call for the chosen ones. Let's talk about the elephant in the spiritual room, the one that's been following you from childhood into adulthood, from classrooms to boardrooms, from family gatherings to lonely bedrooms at night. The truth is, you don't fit in. No matter how many times you've tried, and I mean really tried, you've bent yourself backward like a spiritual gymnast trying to make others comfortable. You've silenced your depth in shallow rooms, smiled through conversations that made your soul itch, and nodded politely at opinions that clashed with every divine fiber of your being. You've even laughed at jokes you didn't find funny just to avoid being labeled too serious, too intense, or too different. But despite your best efforts, you still feel like a puzzle piece in the wrong box. Why? Because you weren't made to fit in. You were crafted with intention and precision to stand out. You were not placed on this earth to be average. You weren't designed to play small. You weren't formed in your mother's womb to blend into the background. God handpicked you to walk boldly where others tremble. You weren't called to be one of the boys or just another sweet girl. You were set apart to lead, to disrupt, to heal, to build, to break generational curses, to raise up other warriors, not followers. That aching discomfort you feel when you're surrounded by surface-level conversations and fake smiles, that's your spirit rejecting mediocrity. That feeling that something isn't right, even when everything looks fine on paper, that's divine discernment. That's heaven whispering, you're not crazy, you're called. And that loneliness, oh, that sacred stretching loneliness, that's not abandonment, it's preparation. It's the holy isolation where God does his deepest work. You see, before elevation comes isolation. Before the platform comes the pruning. Before the crown, the crushing. Look at Jesus. He had a crowd. Yes, he had followers, miracles, attention. But his real power, that showed up in the desert, alone, surrounded by wild animals, empty, hungry, human. And it was there, in that sacred stillness where the Spirit gave him power, clarity, authority, and a mission that turned the entire world upside down. So if you feel out of place, misunderstood, or flat out rejected, then congratulations. That's your confirmation. You've been marked, chosen, set apart. Your rejection isn't punishment, it's promotion. Heaven is too wise to let you settle in places you've outgrown. So when people ghost you, ignore your brilliance or secretly compete while smiling in your face. Don't despair, that's just God shaking the table and removing distractions. Rejection is redirection. It's God clearing the room for your real assignment. And here's something no one tells you. If nobody gets you good, that means God is the only one who needs to. When you're constantly trying to be understood by people who lack spiritual language, you water down your anointing. But when you accept that your audience is divine, not public, that's when true freedom begins. Chosen ones are not here for applause. You're here for impact. You weren't built for comfort. You were born for conflict, the kind that breaks chains, exposes lies, disrupts generational patterns, and pulls people out of spiritual sleep. You've got victory engraved in your DNA, and that inner tension, that constant tug-of-war between being normal and being real, that's your spiritual alarm clock. Wake up. The world doesn't need another copycat, it needs you, bold, authentic, raw, and called. Let's get even more real for a second. Scientists say that only 2% of people are considered highly creative, and only a fraction of those pursue their calling because of fear of rejection. That's a lot of divine potential wasted trying to be accepted. But when you embrace your different, you step into divine territory. The most powerful leaders in history were the outcasts, the misunderstood, the ones society didn't know what to do with, until they did something extraordinary. So yes, you walk alone sometimes, but you're never truly alone. You're walking with vision, with discernment, with divine protection. You're walking with God, and when He walks with you, the lonely path becomes holy ground. So no more shrinking, no more dumbing yourself down, no more asking people for permission to be powerful. You were chosen before the foundation of the world, and that calling, it still stands. The elephant in the room is no longer a secret. You don't fit in because you're not meant to. And now that you know, stand up, stand tall, and stand out. The world may not be ready, but heaven already is. Chosen one, if you've seen these 4 signs in your life, then don't question it anymore. Don't wait for a burning bush. Don't beg for approval from broken people. God has already stamped you with divine authority. Yes, you with your scars, your doubts, your weirdness. You've been chosen to lead in the final times. This world is darkening by the day. People are losing hope. But heaven is raising up a remnant, a hidden army, leaders that don't need a stage, just a surrendered heart. You're not here to blend in, you're here to rise. You're not here to entertain, you're here to ignite. So lead, chosen one. Cry if you must, rest if you need. But don't you dare quit, because when the final battle begins, the world will look for the ones who never fit in and find you already standing.